My motive for giving is more than one of selfish joy. It's one of my responsibilities of life on this earth. These assets are not mine, they're God's, and I'm only giving to Him what is already His. My life, my means are invested in the greatest business on earth, Christian education and the spiritual welfare of our young people, in whom I have great confidence.
If you have ever walked across the SMA campus, heard the chimes of the carillon from the Robinson Tower of Prayer, attended a chapel service in the Robinson Christian Center, enjoyed the music of the organ or the piano in that center, gazed at the face of Christ as He offers the universal invitation, or received financial aid from the Robinson Scholarship or Robinson Foundation, then you have benefited from the generosity of Miss Velma Lee Robinson. Mrs. Robinson is, without question, one of the most significant figures in the history of the Academy. Her combined gifts to the Academy total more than those of any other individual. She was presented with the Academy's Distinguished Patron Award, as well as the Exemplary Service Medal. She was named an honorary member of the Academy's 75th class and was named an emeritus member of the Academy's Board of Trustees after 2 decades of active service. Although Mrs. Robinson passed away in 1998, her name will always be closely associated with the Academy, and today her name and her memory will be celebrated with the dedication of Velma Robinson Loop. Velma Robinson grew up in the Aransas Pass, Corpus Christi area, where she met and later married John Harvey Robinson. John ran a highly successful trucking business, and after selling that business in the late 1950s, the Robinsons purchased a small ranch in San Marcos, as well as a larger ranch in Edna, Texas. They relocated to Edna, where they met and became friends with Pastor Mickey Wooten and his wife Betty.
Well, what I knew about the Robinsons was when I became pastor of the First Baptist Church of Edna, Texas. And shortly after I became the pastor, they moved from Corpus Christi to Edna, and they joined, and they became real good friends. They had this big ranch, 30,000 acres, and they would invite us out there, swimming pool and everything. But they became very active in the church, and in that first year they started talking about going to the Holy Land. And then about a couple years later, we did. Both of them, and Betty and I, went to the Holy Land and visited several countries in Europe and England and Scotland, and we were gone about 2 months.
Not long after that memorable trip, Mr. Robinson asked Reverend Wooten if he would move to San Marcos to manage their ranch there, and he agreed. A short time after taking that position, Reverend Wooten was given the sad task of performing the funeral service for Mr. Robinson when he died in 1962. 2 years after her husband's passing, Velma Robinson was invited by San Marcos Academy President William Crook to serve on the Board of Trustees. Dr. Crook had known Mr. and Mrs. Robinson when they lived in Corpus Christi, and he believed that Mrs. Robinson's strong Christian principles and shrewd business sense would serve the Academy well. A few months later, Mrs. Robinson presented the first of her many gifts to the Academy, a donation of $25,000 for the construction of a prayer tower. The 70-foot tower was built on the highest point of the campus and was named in memory of Mrs. Robinson's late husband, John Harvey Robinson. By the time the tower was completed, Dr. Crook had left the Academy, and Jack Byram was the school's new president. He remembers Mrs. Robinson sharing with him her desire to build a Christian education center adjacent to the prayer tower.
I was not president of the Academy when she gave the prayer tower. I was living in San Marcos at the time and watched the construction of the prayer tower. But she gave that as a precursor to her gift of the Robinson Christian Center. We talked about it, and she came to me and said, I want to give the Robinson Christian Center and place it in relationship to the tower Of course, I was thrilled about that, and it wasn't long until the money was available. She made her contributions, not all at one time, but occasionally as she had opportunity and wanted to. And out of that, we built the original Robinson Christian Center.
Just a few years after the completion of the Robinson Christian Center, Dr. Byram was approached by the president of Southwest Texas State University with an offer to purchase the Academy's campus. One of the first trustees Dr. Byram consulted about the sale was Mrs. Robinson. It would end up being a conversation Dr. Byram said he will never forget.
When the idea of the sale of the old Academy campus was broached to me, and I began to think in positive terms about it, I thought that she and other people had made contributions to the building of the campus, and that we had some obligation to talk to them about that. So I determined that before I made any kind of commitment to anybody, I needed to talk to her. So I went to see her, and I said that the university would like to buy the Academy campus, lock, stock, and barrel. And she thought about it a little while and said, why don't we pursue this and see if God is directing us to do this? And I said, well, I will take the next step in the negotiation. And she said, I think that would be fine as far as I'm concerned. And I said, well, we will build another Robinson Christian Center on the new campus. And she said, where are you going to put this? And I said, well, we haven't decided that. And she said, you know, I have a ranch west of town, and if you'd like to put it on that ranch, I would give you the front north side of the ranch on Ranch Road 12, and you can have that and build your campus there. And she said, how much land do you think you would need? And I simply said, oh, I suspect about 200 acres. And she said, well, why don't you just go ahead and have that surveyed off, but don't just say 200 acres. Do it so that it will take advantage of the landscape out there, and if it's more, it's okay. Turned out to be more than that. And when I went back to her, I told her what we had done, and she said, that's fine, just go ahead and have the papers drawn up, and we'll give you the land. And that's how it happened.
With a site for the campus assured, a deal was struck with the university, and a groundbreaking ceremony for the new campus was held in November of 1979. Construction began in January of 1981, and on May 1st, 1982, a dedication ceremony was held on the Academy's brand new campus in the new Robinson Christian Center.
You know, the interesting thing about Mrs. Robinson is that I don't recall ever asking her to make a gift to the Academy. She always took the initiative. She always said, I want to do this, I want to do this, whatever it was. And as we began to draw plans and the construction began, she said, now I want to give an organ for that building, and I want to give a piano for that, and I want to name them for my parents, and I want to give a stained glass window, and I want to do that in honor of you and Bobby, my wife. I'd never asked her for any of those things, and she always took the initiative in giving. She was a very giving person.
One of Mrs. Robinson's gifts to the Academy was an endowed scholarship which continues to provide funds for students to this day. Financial aid dollars are also given annually to students through the Robinson Foundation, which Mrs. Robinson established in 1983.
Because of Mrs. Robinson's love, especially for children, she wanted to establish endowed scholarships. and help those who were needy to be able to come and have the education that San Marcos Baptist Academy was able to offer. Her generosity was enormous. She had faith, I think, in children and wanted to see them mature and grow to their potential. And so she gave generously to the Academy in form of scholarships. And so today her legacy lives on because of the scholarships.
San Marcos Academy was not the only beneficiary of Mrs. Robinson's generosity. She also gave liberally to the South Texas Children's Home in Beeville, to 4-H projects in Etna, and to her church. With no children of her own, she enjoyed giving to her extended family and to those she considered her adopted children. She provided scholarships that helped many young people attend college.
She was as fine of a Christian woman as you'll ever know. She loved everybody and wanted to do for people. She loved young people and wanted to do something to help them. And she knew she was going to have some income to do something with.
If Mrs. Robinson's life was marked by a generous spirit, it was equally characterized by consistency. In her 19 years on the Board of Trustees, she rarely missed a meeting. Though she stepped down as a voting member of the board in 1985, she was named a member emeritus and continued to attend meetings for several more years as her health allowed.
Mrs. Robinson was an absolute excellent trustee. She loved the Academy. She loved the students. She had a grasp of what the Academy was all about that a few people did. And she supported everything that was good for the students and their parents.
In the scripture, we're encouraged to be servants. And I can't think of a person that was a better servant to people than Mrs. Robinson. It thrilled her, it pleased her to be able to do something for other people. I think that if children wanted to understand about Mrs. Robinson's life and her legacy to the Academy, they probably should read some scripture, especially the way Jesus loved people and wanted to help people. That describes her life. She knew her Bible really well, and she lived her life according to what the scripture said. And so I can't think of a better example for young people to follow than the life of Velma Robinson.